Isla Contoy is a small island in the Mexican state of Quintana Roo, approximately 30 kilometers north of Cancun. The island is only 8.5 kilometers in length and has an area of 3.17 square kilometers. In addition to offering an extraordinary land experience, the island's coastal areas provide a rare opportunity to explore coastal dunes, lagoons, the Intercontinental Canal, a public beach, and an extraordinary concentration of coral reefs. These reefs, which begin at the southern end of the island, form the beginning of the Great Mesoamerican Reef, the second largest coral reef in the world. The beautiful, nutrient-rich waters surrounding the island attract hundreds of different marine species, with the rare whale shark and the more common manta rays among the most prominent local inhabitants. Schools of sailfish arrive in the winter to feed on the migrating sardines. Since 1961, Isla Contoy has been protected by the Mexican government and was declared a national park in 1998. Supervised ecotourism and regulated commercial fishing is allowed on and near the island. Only a few tour companies have permission to bring tourists with an allowed maximum 200 daily visitors. Visitors need to apply for permission to visit the island at the park offices on Isla Mujeres or Cancun. There are no poisonous snakes on the Isla Contoy and no fresh water, which probably explains why it has been free from development so far. The beaches are nesting grounds for several different species of turtle, and there are over 100 different species of marine birds on the island. The island is home to over 4,000 frigate birds. The inland lagoon and the surrounding mangrove are major nesting and rest-over areas for these birds. There are a number of paths that radiate out from the visitor center. As you walk along the path, among the wildlife you may see hermit crabs, geckos, and iguanas. The seaward side of the island fronts a long, spectacular limestone wall butting into the sea. With anything other than a flat calm, the waves break and cascade over the limestone, providing a truly impressive spectacle and offering some really good photo shots. If you go down to the limestone wall, just be careful to remember where the access point was. Once down on the rocks, it's easy to lose sight of the paths. While there are no poisonous snakes on the island, it is home to boa constrictors. These are large, native, non-poisonous snakes that can reach up to 5 to 6 feet in length. Boa constrictors live off small reptiles and mammals that are plentiful in the lush undergrowth and lagoon. A walk along the limestone wall entails some deft footwork to avoid stepping on any of the hundreds of geckos sunning themselves on the rocks. 4 species of turtle find a safe haven for nesting on the beaches of the island, namely the loggerhead turtle, green turtle, hawksbill turtle, and the leatherback turtle. The reserve is also a sanctuary to approximately 152 tropical marine birds, like the frigate bird, brown pelican, and the double-crested cormorant. The waters off the island are famous for large pelagic life, including whale sharks, manta rays, sailfish, and dolphins. Isla Contoy is known for the large accumulation of whale sharks in the summer months. Whale sharks are protected by Mexican law, and it is illegal to catch or kill these magnificent creatures. The whale shark is a slow-moving, filter-feeding shark and the largest known fish. The largest confirmed individual had a length of 12.65 meters and a weight of more than 21.5 metric tons. Unconfirmed reports of considerably larger whale sharks exist. Whale sharks can grow to the size of a bus. The whale shark holds many records for sheer size in the animal kingdom, most notably being by far the largest living non-mammalian vertebrate, rivaling many of the largest dinosaurs in weight. The species originated about 60 million years ago. The whale shark is found in tropical and warm oceans and lives in the open sea with a lifespan of about 70 years. Whale sharks have very large mouths, and as filter feeders, they feed mainly on plankton. Whale sharks time their arrival to coincide with the mass spawning of fish shoals and feeding on resultant clouds of eggs and sperm. The name whale shark comes from the fish's size, being as large as some species of whale and also a filter feeder like baleen whales. The whale shark inhabits all tropical and warm temperate seas. Primarily pelagic, seasonal feeding aggregations occur at several coastal sites. Although typically seen offshore, it has been found closer to land, entering lagoons or coral atolls, and near the mouths of estuaries and rivers. In 2011, more than 400 whale sharks gathered off the Yucatan coast around Isla Contoy. It was one of the largest gatherings of whale sharks recorded. Whale sharks have a mouth that can be 1.5 meters wide. Its mouth contains between 300 to 350 rows of tiny teeth and 10 filter pads, which it uses to filter feed. Whale sharks have 5 large pairs of gills. Its head is wide and flat with 2 small eyes at the front. Their skin is marked with pale yellow spots and stripes, which are unique to each individual. The whale shark has 3 prominent ridges along its sides. The whale shark is a filter feeder, one of only 3 known filter feeding shark species, along with the basking shark and the megamouth shark. It feeds on microalgae, plankton, krill, Christmas Island red crab larvae, and small nectonic life, such as small squid or vertebrates. It also feeds on small fish and the clouds of eggs and sperm during mass spawning of fish. Feeding occurs either by ram filtration, in which the animal opens its mouth and swims forward, pushing water and food into the mouth, or by active suction feeding, in which the animal opens and closes its mouth, sucking in volumes of water that are then expelled through the gills. In both cases, the filter pads serve to separate food from water. Whale sharks have been observed coughing, presumably to clear a buildup of particles from the filter pads. Each shark eats hundreds of pounds of food a day. Conditions around Isla Contoy are perfect for plankton during the summer months. The plankton makes the water murky, which then attracts large schools of fish. The whale shark can be accompanied by schools of fish that use the body of the whale shark for protection. Despite its size, the whale shark does not pose significant danger to humans. They're docile fish and sometimes allow swimmers to catch a ride, although this practice is discouraged by shark scientists and conservationists. Younger whale sharks are gentle and can play with divers. The capture of a female in 1996 that was pregnant with 300 pups indicate whale sharks are ovoviviparous. The eggs remain in the body, and the females give birth to live young, which are 40 to 60 centimeters long. Evidence indicates the pups are not all born at once, but rather the female retains sperm from one mating and produces a steady stream of pups over a prolonged period. They reach sexual maturity at around 30 years, and their lifespan is an estimated 70 to 100 years. The whale shark is targeted by commercial fisheries in several areas where they seasonally aggregate. The population is unknown, and the species is considered vulnerable. In 1998, the Philippines banned all fishing, selling, importing, and exporting of whale sharks for commercial purposes, followed by India in May 2001 and Taiwan in May 2007. When the Spanish conquistadors claimed areas of Central America and Mexico in the 16th century, they discovered the ruins of a great civilization, that of the Mayans, who had vanished and left evidence of their lost grandeur in massive structures that had been overwhelmed by the surrounding rainforest. The native people could not explain the significance of the sprawling, vacant cities to the conquistadors. Unlike the great Incan cities, the Mayan centers had long been abandoned. The ruins of the Mayans did not begin to reveal their secrets for 300 years. Since the 19th century, enough information has been gathered about the Mayan structures to sketch a history of their development, but the reasons why the great structures were suddenly abandoned and the exact purposes of their massive and elaborate buildings continue to remain trapped in the past. The Mayan structure at its pinnacle stretched from central Mexico to Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. There are 14 commonly recognized major Mayan archaeological ruin sites in the Yucatan. Tulum and Coba are the most visited sites in Quintana Roo. The most famous Mayan ruin site is Chichen Itza, located in the Mexican state of Yucatan and characterize a typical Mayan center with plazas, pyramid, a court for ball games, and blocks of stone inscribed with hieroglyphics. Tikal, another Mayan center in Guatemala, had more than 3,000 structures in a 6 square mile area and accommodated a surrounding community that may have numbered as many as 90,000 people. The magnificent structures at Tikal in Guatemala and Calakmul in the Mexican state of Campeche have been declared World Heritage Sites by UNESCO. The various ruins were not excavated and examined until the latter half of the 19th century. They show that Mayans developed systems of mathematics, writing, and astronomy and erected monumental forms of architecture. Subsequent discoveries showed their calendar recorded dates as far back as 600 before the present era. The Maya used a base 20 and base 5 numbering system and developed the concept of zero by 36 BC. There were 3 symbols that formed the numerals: a shell glyph meaning 0, a dot meaning 1, and a bar meaning 5. By the 1st century BCE, they specifically used a calendar that had 18 20-day months. Matching the Mayan base 20 mathematical system, the contemporary mathematical system used in the West is base 10. The Spanish church and government officials destroyed Maya texts, and with them the knowledge of Maya writing. Although many Mayan centers went into decline or were completely abandoned, the skill and knowledge of Maya writing persisted among segments of the population, and the early Spanish conquistadors knew of individuals who could still read and write the script. Unfortunately, the Spanish displayed little interest in it, and as a result, the dire impacts the conquest had on Maya societies, the knowledge was subsequently lost, probably within only a few generations. The decipherment and recovery of now lost knowledge of Maya writing has been long and a laborious process. Some elements were first deciphered in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, mostly the parts having to do with numbers, the Maya calendar, and astronomy. By the end of the 20th century, scholars were able to read the majority of Maya texts, to a large extent, and recent fieldwork continues to further illuminate the content. When modern archaeologists learned how to read Mayan hieroglyphics, a history emerged that showed the Mayan centers were not occupied by peaceful astronomers, and the large structures did not serve specifically as ceremonial sites. Instead, the hieroglyphics boasted of the accomplishments of a warlike elite. Many of the great Mayan buildings were monuments to great military leaders. Settlements with large structures served as centers for trade, but primarily for the accumulation of riches for the elite of Mayan society. Those who contributed to culture, artisans and astronomers among them, were highly esteemed, but a ruling elite held the riches and the power. The Maya reached their peak between AD 200 and AD 900, when they declined for reasons unknown. Many of the major sites were abandoned, others lasted until the 17th century. Many of the ruins were rediscovered during the 19th century when logging brought the ancient centers to light. Almost all of the ancient sites had been covered and hidden by dense jungle overgrowth. Among the Maya, social hierarchy played an important role, and nobility enjoyed special privileges and exercised absolute power. Some of the Mayan ruins still have preserved inscriptions and paintings. The nobles were warriors and glorified for their victories. Mayan art required a wide range of specialized craftsmen to make paintings, carved stone, and stucco sculptures. Dances were an important part of religious events. Musicians played the drums, wooden and clay trumpets and flutes, rattles and scrapers. Mayan art is impressive, not only because of its size, but also because of its harmonious composition. The common people and slaves were responsible for providing material goods. Under the supervision of priests, activities such as slash and burn agriculture, hunting, and building were carried out collectively. Most of the goods obtained by the lower classes were handed over as tribute to the noble classes, comprised of lords and priests. The Lord class practiced cranial deformation and perforated nasal septum, lips, and earlobes to insert nose rings, lower lip, and ear rings. They filed their teeth and inlaid them with obsidian, jade, and pyrite stones. The Maya tattooed their skin and painted their bodies for ritual or war. Mayan buildings were erected around large open squares where the people participated in religious ceremonies. Construction and the use of blocks of limestone were covered with a layer of stucco which served as the base for painting and buildings with different colors. The buildings were decorated with sculptures modeled in stucco or carved in stone, on which they depicted their rulers ascending to power. They also portrayed the works commissioned during the Lord's rule, alternating them with mythical beings. The high temperatures of the Yucatan made it difficult to work with lime. Mayan painters incorporated vegetable gum into their blends of lime and coloring. The mixture was applied to murals with feathered brushes. The Maya utilized dry fresco, which consists of applying a flat layer of lime mixed with a little sand to the base stone. The layer was then polished. Scenes were then etched in red. They made colors from a variety of sources, including minerals from distant lands. Reds and browns were extracted from seeds, bark, and clay. Purple and magenta were extracted from sea snail and insects. Maya gods represented the forces of nature. The same god could be beneficial or harmful, male or female, and provide energy for life or death. The ancient Maya represented the universe with an enormous silk cotton tray. The branches supported the heavens, or Kan. Man's life on earth, or Kab, took place within the trunk, and the roots sank into the underworld, or Xibalba. They believed the earth was square, and thought it was supported by an enormous alligator or turtle. Heaven was divided into 13 levels ruled by the same number of gods, while the underworld was divided into 9 levels. Mayan civilization thrived until 800, when a decline began. Tikal was abandoned, and the process of recording events stopped there by 900. Uxmal showed more development around 850, but it was abandoned around 925. Chichen Itza was abandoned around 987. It was subsequently occupied like some of the other centers, but new massive structures were not built, and the old temples did not serve the same functions as they had in the past. What factors caused the demise of the Mayan Empire remains a mystery. Destruction from earthquakes is evident in some Mayan centers, but not all, and earthquakes are not believed to have leveled any of the major centers. There is no evidence of mass burials that would indicate an epidemic such as plague, smallpox, or other infectious diseases that swept through Europe during the same time as the Mayans' golden era and downfall. The great success of the Mayan culture may be a plausible reason for their downfall. As the population grew, the stress on agriculture became greater, for an expanding population requires consistently more food production. Soil erosion or drought would have greatly affected the large settlements, but no conclusive evidence has been found to determine a sudden, widespread catastrophe. Whatever happened to the Mayans was an event of such magnitude that it caused a fracture in the long-standing practices and social order of the entire culture. The great cities continued to be occupied for decades after the hieroglyphics stopped reporting triumphs, and then the majestic temples, stately pyramids, and massive edifices were abandoned completely to the surrounding jungle. There is evidence that the Maya population exceeded the carrying capacity of the environment, including exhaustion of agricultural potential and overhunting of megafauna. Some scholars have recently theorized that an intense 200-year drought led to the collapse of Maya civilization. Newer research from 2011, with use of high-resolution climate models and new reconstructions of past landscapes, suggests that converting much of their forest land into cropland may have led to reduced evotranspiration and thus rainfall, magnifying natural drought. A study published in Science in 2012 found that modest rainfall reductions amounting to only 25 to 40% in annual rainfall may have been the tipping point to the Maya collapse. Based on samples of lake and cave sediments in the areas surrounding major Maya cities, the researchers were able to determine the amount of annual rainfall in the region. The mild droughts that took place between AD 800 and 950 were enough to rapidly reduce open water availability. A further paper in the same journal supports and extends this conclusion based on isotope analysis of minerals and a stalagmite. It argues that high rainfall between 440 and 660 CE allowed the Maya to flourish in their first instance, and that while mild droughts in the following years led to extensive warfare and the decline of Maya civilization, it was a prolonged period of drought between 1020 and 1100 CE that was ultimately fatal.